I sat there for a long time after Vanessa left, listening to the faint hum of her car pulling out of the driveway. My fingers drummed against the sheets, my pulse an erratic rhythm beneath my skin. A sickening weight pressed against my chest, an invisible force I had grown too familiar with over the last few months. Nick. His name had become a stain on my marriage, creeping into conversations, lingering in places he had no right to be. Vanessa spoke about him with an ease that set my teeth on edge, always laughing at his jokes, always finding a reason to text him late at night. I had brushed off the signs before, convincing myself I was being paranoid. But the way she had looked at me this morning, her eyes dancing with something that wasn't love, but rather anticipation, told me everything I needed to know. I threw the covers off and swung my legs over the edge of the bed. My body felt tense, my mind clouded with thoughts I couldn't shake. The scent of her perfume still clung to the air, an unbearable reminder that while I sat here stewing in silence, she was on her way to him. Not this time. I stood, moving with purpose. My phone rested on the nightstand, screen dark, but I knew exactly what I needed to do. Pulling up the tracking app I had installed weeks ago, I tapped the icon labeled Vanessa's phone. A small blue dot appeared on the map, moving steadily away from home. The lie had finally taken shape. She wasn't headed toward the office. She was driving toward the city, toward the upscale part of town where Nick lived in his high-rise apartment. A bitter chuckle escaped me. No business retreat, no networking. Just Vanessa and Nick, tangled in whatever sick fantasy they had built behind my back. I should have been furious. I should have thrown something, broken something. Instead, a strange calm settled over me. My fingers tightened around the phone as a plan began to form. I showered quickly, letting the hot water strip away the haze of disbelief, replacing it with cold determination. The man staring back at me in the mirror was not the same one who had blindly trusted his wife, who had ignored the whispers of doubt. No, the man before me had sharp eyes, a clenched jaw, and an intent that burned hotter than rage. Dressing swiftly, I slipped on jeans, a dark shirt, and a jacket thick enough to blend into the crowds. My car keys jingled as I grabbed them, heart hammering in my chest. It wasn't enough to know. I needed to see it with my own eyes. The drive into the city felt longer than it should have. My grip on the wheel was tight, knuckles white against the leather. The GPS kept me updated on her location, the blue dot now stationary near a high-end hotel. A hotel, not his apartment. The betrayal twisted deeper, an iron blade against my ribs. I pulled into a parking garage nearby, keeping my movements steady, careful. Every step closer felt like another crack in the foundation of what I thought my marriage was. I reached the entrance and scanned the guests strolling in and out, my heart pounding so loudly I swore they could hear it. Then, as if the universe wanted to mock me, I saw her. Vanessa. She stood at the check-in desk, her smile radiant, her hand resting lightly on her suitcase. And beside her, laughing, leaning in too close, was Nick, his hand pressed against the small of her back. And she didn't pull away. Time slowed. Every muscle in my body tensed, screaming for action, for confrontation. But I held back, lurking near the bar's entrance, watching, absorbing every damning second. The receptionist handed them a key card. They turned toward the elevator. She giggled at something he whispered in her ear. My fingers curled into fists, nails digging into my palm. I had seen enough. But this wasn't over. Not even close. I forced myself to breathe, steadying the storm inside me as I watched them disappear into the elevator. Every fiber of my being screamed at me to charge forward, to rip that key card from Vanessa's hand and drag her out of here, demanding an explanation she wouldn't be able to give. But that wasn't what I wanted. Not yet. Confrontation now would be messy, chaotic. It would give her the chance to lie, to twist the truth, to cry and beg and make me question everything I already knew. No, I needed something stronger, something undeniable. I turned away from the lobby, my footsteps heavy against the marble floor. The bar sat just a few feet from where I stood, dimly lit, half filled with guests sipping expensive whiskey and exchanging quiet conversations. I slid onto a stool, nodding at the bartender as he approached. "Scotch," I muttered, eyes flicking toward the elevator. "Neat." The glass landed in front of me with a soft clink, amber liquid sloshing as I picked it up, my mind racing through possibilities. Vanessa thought she had control of this game. She believed she could slip away for the weekend, wrapped in Nick's arms, and return home with me none the wiser. She was wrong. I pulled my phone from my pocket, tapping the screen. If she was bold enough to betray me in a place like this, then I would be just as bold in making sure she never forgot what she had done. My fingers moved quickly, accessing the hotel's website. It didn't take long to find the floor plan, a layout of the suites, the amenities, the details she likely thought I would never see. The elevator doors slid open in the distance, and my eyes snapped up in time to catch them stepping into the hallway, Vanessa's laughter floating through the air as Nick whispered in her ear. They walked side by side, close, like lovers who had nothing to hide. They disappeared around the corner, leaving my pulse hammering in my ears. I wasn't far behind. Leaving my half-finished drink behind, I moved toward the elevators, waiting until no one else stood nearby before stepping inside. The moment the doors slid shut, I scanned the numbered panel, then reached into my pocket. The small device I had brought wasn't fancy, just a simple signal interceptor, something I had picked up months ago when I first started suspecting her infidelity. It wasn't illegal, just clever. I pressed the button for the highest floor. As the elevator ascended, I activated the device, waiting. Within seconds, the intercepted signal blinked onto my phone screen. Their room number flashed before me. Suite 1219. The proof was almost too easy. The elevator doors slid open, revealing a quiet, carpeted hallway lined with elegant wooden doors. My feet carried me forward, my mind spinning with every possibility of what I was about to witness. Would I hear them? Would she moan his name the way she used to moan mine? Would they be tangled in sheets, lost in each other without a second thought about the life she had built with me? I reached their door, my breath coming in slow, measured pulls. Pressing my ear against the wood, I listened. Soft laughter, a muffled conversation. Then, silence. I clenched my jaw. I had two choices. Walk away and let my mind create its own nightmares, or step forward and tear this fantasy apart with my own hands. The decision was already made. I pulled my phone out, switched to video, and knocked. A few beats of silence. Then footsteps. The door swung open and Nick stood there, shirtless, his toned frame smug and relaxed. But that confidence wavered the second he saw me. His lips parted. "What the—" I didn't let him finish. Vanessa's voice floated from inside. "Who is it, baby?" Baby. The word was a blade against my skin. Nick hesitated, stepping slightly to the side. That's when I saw her. She sat on the bed, wrapped in nothing but a white hotel robe, long legs crossed, her blonde hair falling in loose waves over her shoulders. A champagne flute rested in her hand, half full, shimmering beneath the golden glow of the room's lights. And then she saw me. Her entire body went rigid, color draining from her face. "You didn't leave." Her voice was barely a whisper, her fingers tightening around the glass. I smiled, slow and deliberate, raising my phone so the camera captured every expression, every emotion flitting across her face. "Say cheese, sweetheart," I murmured. And then I hit record. Vanessa's eyes widened in sheer terror. The champagne flute in her grasp trembled, her fingers turning white as she struggled to process what was happening. Nick, standing half-naked in the doorway, looked between us, panic seeping into his arrogant smirk. I stepped forward, my grip firm on my phone, ensuring the camera captured everything: the plush hotel suite, the undone sheets, the intimacy of the scene they had created in my absence. The truth laid bare. "You didn't leave?" Vanessa's voice wavered, almost pleading, as if my presence here was some kind of betrayal. A laugh, low, bitter, rumbled from my throat. "No, sweetheart," I said, mimicking the endearment she had just given Nick. "Turns out I had some unexpected weekend plans of my own." Nick shifted, placing himself between us like a human shield, as if I was some kind of threat. Maybe I was. Maybe he could see it in my eyes, that cold, detached calculation of a man who had just watched his wife strip down every ounce of loyalty she had sworn to him. "Listen, man," Nick started, hands raised in some pathetic attempt to de-escalate. "This isn't what it looks like." I laughed again, sharper this time, cutting through the thick tension between us. "Spare me the cliché, Nick." I gestured around the room, my phone still recording. "I think the camera's picking up exactly what this is." Vanessa stood then, her robe slipping slightly, revealing more of the silky skin that just hours ago I had foolishly thought belonged only to me. She tugged it tight, like she could somehow hide her sins behind a thin piece of fabric. "Please, just let me explain," she breathed, stepping closer. I held up a hand, stopping her in her tracks. "Explain." My voice was even, but the venom beneath it dripped like acid. "You mean lie? Like you've been doing for months?" Her lips parted, but no words came. She knew there was nothing she could say. Nick, however, was still trying to salvage something, though I wasn't sure if it was his pride or his face. "Look, let's just be adults about this. No need for—" My fist connected with his jaw before he could finish. The sickening crack of impact sent him stumbling back, colliding with the nightstand. Vanessa screamed, rushing toward him, her hands flying to his face, checking for damage like he was the victim here, like I hadn't just walked in on them ripping apart my marriage. Nick groaned, blinking rapidly, dazed from the hit. "You fucking asshole," he slurred, spitting blood onto the pristine hotel carpet. I stepped back, shaking out my fist. The pain in my knuckles barely registered. The rush of adrenaline drowned out everything but the satisfaction of seeing the smug bastard crumple beneath my anger. Vanessa turned to me now, fury mixing with desperation. "What the hell is wrong with you?" she shrieked, her voice an octave higher than I'd ever heard before. I smiled. "That's funny," I said, tucking my phone back into my pocket. "I was just about to ask you the same thing." Her breathing was ragged, her chest rising and falling too fast, her mind scrambling for something, anything to regain control. But she had nothing. "You're blowing this out of proportion," she finally managed, her voice softer, coaxing like she could still manipulate the situation to her favor. "It was a mistake." I barked out a laugh. "A mistake?" My eyes flickered to Nick, who was still groaning, clutching his jaw. "That's one hell of a mistake, Vanessa." Her bottom lip trembled. The tears were coming now, the same ones that used to unravel me, the ones that once made me weak. Not this time. I inhaled deeply, the scent of sex, betrayal, and overpriced hotel perfume making my stomach turn. Then I reached into my pocket again, not for my phone, but for the small envelope I had prepared days ago, when suspicion turned into certainty. Vanessa's gaze dropped to it immediately. "What's that?" she whispered. I flipped it between my fingers, weighing the moment, savoring the shift of power. Then I tossed it onto the bed. "Divorce papers," I said simply. She inhaled sharply, her hand flying to her mouth. "You think I didn't know?" I continued, watching her crumble. "I've been watching, tracking, recording. Every text, every lie, every fucking time you snuck out of our bed to be with him." I gestured toward Nick, who was finally standing upright again, wiping his mouth with the back of his hand. "Did you really think you were that clever?" Tears spilled over her cheeks. Please, we can fix this. I took a step back, shaking my head. No, Vanessa. You did this. You chose this. I turned toward the door, not sparing Nick another glance. And now, you can have it. With that, I walked out, leaving behind a shattered wife, a bruised lover, and a marriage reduced to nothing but regret. The cold night air hit me as I stepped out of the hotel, but the fire in my chest burned hotter than ever. I had done it. I had seen the truth with my own eyes, confronted the betrayal, and walked away without a second thought. No more doubts. No more lies. No more Vanessa. The valet handed me my keys with a polite nod, completely unaware of the wreckage I had left behind in that suite. I slid into the driver's seat, gripping the wheel as the reality of the moment settled in. The past few months had been torture, sleepless nights, endless questions, the sinking feeling in my gut every time Vanessa came home late with flimsy excuses. But now the weight was gone. I wasn't the fool anymore. As I pulled out of the parking lot, my phone buzzed. I didn't have to look to know it was her. Maybe she had already read the divorce papers. Maybe she was panicking, realizing that she had destroyed everything we built. Or maybe she was just trying to salvage what little dignity she had left. I let it ring. By the time I reached home, the house felt different, emptier, but in a way that was freeing rather than lonely. I walked inside, tossing my jacket onto the couch, and exhaled. The walls that had once been filled with love and warmth had become nothing but a facade for Vanessa's deception. And yet I wasn't sad. I was done grieving for someone who had never truly been mine. I poured myself a drink, savoring the burn as it slid down my throat. The silence around me wasn't suffocating anymore. It was peaceful. A new beginning. Another buzz. This time, a message. Vanessa, please, can we talk? Just once. I stared at the screen, debating whether to reply, but then another message popped up, from someone else. Samantha. Hey, I know this is random, but you free this weekend? A small smile tugged at the corner of my lips. Samantha. She had been a friend for years, someone who had always been there, even when I was too blind to see it. Unlike Vanessa, she had never fed me lies, never made me doubt my worth. I typed back a quick response. Me. Yeah, I think I am. And with that, I put my phone down, took another sip of my drink, and looked ahead. Not at the past, not at the pain, but at the future. A future that was finally mine to embrace.